Hey crafty people! Welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! So it is time for another mystery craft, and if you're new to my channel, at the beginning of the year, I typed up a list of a bunch of craft supplies in my stash that I wanted to use some more, just kind of neglected craft supplies. And for mystery craft, I stick my hand into the cup and I pull out a name from the cup, and that's what we craft with. Sandable Paper. All right. And this is kind of cool because I watched the Tim Holtz live of the new stamp release and saw a really cool idea that we might give a try using some sandable paper. All right, I've got to dig out the supplies and then we'll get started. So I've grabbed some papers to work with for our mystery project. And before we get started, a quick word about sandable papers. Now, there are some that market that property, like the Tim Holtz Idea-ology line of craft core cardstock. They, I think, spray on a coating of the color on the one side. The back's craft. The core of the paper is craft. So if you sand off the top layer, you will see the craft underneath. So that's one type of sandable paper. I've got from my stash that I've had forever. This is by Coordinations, and it's specifically a sandable, marketed as sandable cardstock. I don't know if it's still available. I'll double check, and if so, I'll leave more information down below. But see on the back, this is the color, the core color of the cardstock, and they spray on top a neutral, so brown, black, white. And when you sand it, you reveal the color underneath. But any piece of paper that is not solid core cardstock is sandable. So like these are Craft Consortium papers. This is, it's a double-sided paper. But in the middle is, and I don't know how well it's showing up, and if it will show up, and if I can get it to focus. Ah, there we go. See, you'll notice in the middle of the cardstock, it's white. So this is not, the color doesn't go all the way through the paper. Unlike this piece of black paper, where I think you can see, it's black all the way through. So if I take this paper and kind of jaggedy tear it, you'll see all the way through the paper, it's black, right? The inside of the paper is black. That's a solid core cardstock. This scrap of gray paper, you'll notice it's not. So if I were to tear off a corner, I reveal the white underneath. So any cardstock like this that is not solid core, you could sand to get the effect that comes with doing a sandable paper, and that's to reveal what's underneath. And then you can either grunge it or do whatever you want with it. But that's the idea behind sanding cardstock and why you would do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with one of the pieces of the Tim Holtz Idea-ology paper. And I've actually picked up the Tim Holtz Distress Sanding Discs because I figured why not give them a try. And basically all they are is a piece of sandpaper attached to a piece of round felt that will go on a round tool that has Velcro on it. So you can make your own of these, and probably if I ever use these up, that's what I do. You could also use an emery board, or if you've got a sanding block will work, or if you just have some sandpaper. You don't need to put it on the fancy tool. It just makes it a little easier to handle. And I am taking inspiration for this one from the Tim Holtz stamp release video that came out a week or so ago, where someone sanded the center of the card stock and stamped in the area they sanded off. So I'm just going to sand away. Now for this project, having a Swiffer is kind of handy because it'll pick up all the sand off your project. Because yeah, we're gonna be a little messy today. And I think that's good for now for this one. And what I'm going to do is grab my Misty. And this is a really old Hero Art stamp from a stash, and it's a flower. And I'm just kind of taking a look and going, you know what? I want to sand a little bit more over here. I'm going to place my stamp again. I don't know how sticky the back is because this was a wood mounted that I unmounted. So we're going to see how well it goes on. Oh, good. Yay. It's sticky enough. And I'm going to grab my VersaFine Onyx Black to stamp with because I think if I'm going to do any coloring, I'm probably going to use my Distress Colored watercolor pencils for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that on. Sorry about the glare you may be getting, but plastic reflects light and I need light to see by. Okay, I like that. I think I'm going to stamp it one more time just to make sure I've got a nice, good impression. And there we go. And the reason I picked my VersaFine Onyx Black is because once it's dry, it's waterproof. Now I'm going to set this aside and let it dry completely. And there are a few spots that skipped, but I can always go back in with a black pen and go over that later. So that's going to get set aside. All right, so this is dry and I want to go ahead and color it. And I think I've mentioned on a past video, I'm planning on doing one of my next projects is a journal with this as the color palette for it. So I think this card will work well with this palette, this pack of paper. So I'm going to pick my colors for coloring the flower based on the colors in that palette. And so we're going to see how this goes. I have never done this before. I think I'm going to try some Salvage Patina. Yeah, I've never used... My watercolor pencils are new to me, and I haven't really used the Sandable Paper all that much. The, you know, cards, I can talk really again. The Tim Holtz, my brain has completely skipped a beat here on what this stuff is called. So the Craft Core cardstock. There we go. All right, I'm just sticking a little water in the container so that I can see how this works. Not too bad. I'll try some mustard seed for the berries. And actually, I'm going to come in with some picket fence. And then add a little bit more mustard seed and see what that does. I'm going to use some forest moss for the leaves. And I'm kind of thinking I should have just colored these and not wet them. But having wet some of them, I think it'll look weird if I don't watercolor the whole thing. I want to come in and add a little bit more blue in here. I'm gonna try doing ice spruce. See how I like that. Hit it with my heat gun. I think we're gonna go ahead and ice spruce this one. I'm gonna come in with some squeezed lemonade because I want a brighter yellow. And I'm gonna use a little more picket fence, and should have probably put the picket fence down first. And the squeezed lemonade on top. See what happens. Meh. Not sure that that got me what I wanted, but it's not bad. I feel like it needs a label across the bottom. And it definitely needs some inking to tamp it down a bit. So I'm just grabbing some scratch paper. And I think this time I'm gonna grab old paper instead of antique linen. And then I'm gonna use a little Force Moss Distress Oxide to ink the edges. I'm gonna grab my tag template. It's just an old gift card that I cut the corners off of to give me a variety of tag corner shapes. Snip that one. Snip that. And then what I'm going to do is take my sanding tool or an emery board, whichever you've got. And now what I'm going to do is take the sanding disc and sand off the edges. So there you go. There's one piece completely done. Now, another technique you can do with paper that doesn't have a solid core is you can emboss it and then sand it. And so I've gone ahead and embossed a whole bunch of my coordination cardstock with a variety of embossing folders. I've got some by Doris, some by Cuttlebug, and some by Sizzix. These I've had in my stash for ages, so I don't know if they're still available or not. But basically what you do is you run it through the embossing folder, and you can actually see some of the yellow peeking through already from the embossing process. And we're just gonna bring all of that out by sanding. Now don't press down too hard, because otherwise what you'll end up doing is you'll push out the embossing, like you'll flatten it out. So there we go. There's the first one done. And so now you can see the yellow coming through. And now I'll show you one using an emery board. This way, if you don't have a sanding tool, you can use an emery board. So see, you can get, let me dust it off a little bit. Now I'm seeing less dust from using the emery board, and I don't know if that's because I've taken less off on this one or what. Let's do one where we do a side-by-side comparison. So I'll do half with the emery board and half with the sanding tool. So that's the emery board side. And I definitely think this might be like the grit a little bit different, but I like the results I'm getting with the sanding disc better than the emery board. Definitely more dust. So yeah, if you're sensitive to dust, you may want to wear a mask while doing this project. So I think I'm gonna go back over on this side. So yeah, I think the sanding discs work a little bit better than the emery board, but the emery board will work. I'm just checking to see if this one's a medium grit sandpaper. So it just might be that the grit on the emery board isn't as rough as on the sanding disc, and that's why it's working a little bit better. But there we go. There's sanding disc, and emery board. But it will work if you use an emery board, and I don't think this was the best embossing folder to use because I'm definitely seeing more crackage on this one than the other two, and like the paper tearing a little bit. So that's a factor as well. So I've gone ahead off camera and pulled out some stuff to decorate our sanded embossed pieces. And this is one of the clusters I made, and I don't know if I made this one on screen or not during that Mass Make Monday where I did clusters. Let me grab some scorched timber. Actually, no. I think I'm going to go with a different brown. No, actually, let's go with scorched timber. It'll stand out. I'm going to ink the edges of this. And then I just grabbed some book page. It's an old American Historian magazine that I use when I clean off stencils or my work surface from inks, because you might be able to faintly see the stencil impression. So I'll just wet a stencil after I'm done using it and press it onto a page in the book, and then I've got some inky pages when I want or I have some inky book page for if I want some inky book page for doing something like this. Because this just didn't stand out enough against the background, so I'm like, it needs a little something behind. And that will go like that. So let's go ahead and just put that down. So that one, I will probably back it because this isn't great for writing on, with some coffee dyed cardstock to give a good place to write on. But there we go. That one's done. Oh, and this is the Junk Journal Studio yellow labels, as is the label we put on the flower stamped one. And this is Giggle Glitter GFX. I will, of course, leave a list of all the printables down below. This is Liana Scraps, I think. This is the pink set of labels in the pastel collection by the Junk Journal Studio. And the bow is actually from 49 and Market Laser Cut Embellishments. I'm currently doing a fairly extensive craft room reorganization because I need a new couch, which I know sounds kind of strange, but before I get the new couch, what I want to do is have some, there's an organization here called College Hunks Hauling Junk, and they're a service that hauls stuff away. So I'm going to have them come take the old couch, and then me and my dad are going to install new flooring. And the room that needs the couch is my TV room / craft room. All right, for this one, I'm going to grab some pink because I didn't like pull it out quite all the way. Like, I've got little white bits from the surrounding paper because the laser cut embellishments, I'm gonna grab just some Kitsch Flamingo, come on like a sheet, and there's just little tabs holding them in place. And generally speaking, once you rip them out, you don't need to do any kind of inking around, but I did not get this one ripped out very well because it's quite delicate, and so it was a little difficult to get out without destroying it. So what I ended up having to do is leave little bits of the tabs on that held it in place. So yeah, I was reorganizing my laser cut elements and put them into binder pocket pages so that I can more easily see them and access them than keeping them in their original packaging. This is from, I believe, the Blossom collection. But as I was saying, I'm gonna do new flooring, and before I can do new flooring, I need to clear out some space in my craft room because there's stuff all over the floor, so I just need to tidy all of that stuff up in anticipation of doing new flooring. All right, so that one's done. So yeah, I've actually taken this week off of work, and that's one of the things I'm planning on doing. All right, so this is a Fabby Art Studios Love Junk Journals, My Porch Prints, and this is a label I die cut and then stamped on. Now, I think I want to do some inking on these two pieces, and these are antique book page. So let's grab my little scrap paper and decide what color we want to go with. I'm thinking do a little salvage patina. Yeah, so my plan is this week I took off from work so that I could sort my craft space and get a little bit better organized, because since I've started junk journaling, it's kind of exploded everywhere. So get it organized so that I won't have to spend, forever clearing out the room for adding the new flooring. And then I'm gonna grab some old book page, or old paper, not old book page, and add a little of that to it as well. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna grab this piece and knock back all of that white. And we're gonna use old paper this time. Okay, let's pull everybody over, and I'm gonna scorch timber the edges. Probably should have moved that down a little bit more so that there was book page sticking out above it, but it's stuck down now, so there we go. There's another one. And then one last thing we're gonna do for today's mystery craft, and that's I'm gonna show you a piece where we stand regular. We're gonna sand a regular piece of paper so you can see how that looks. And I pulled out some stuff for it. I'm just trying to decide if I want to ink that. I think I do, and I think I want to grab ice spruce for that. I've got some ice spruce distress ink and my face paper. And actually, I think I'm going to go over this because this is a little too bright. I'm going to start by clipping my, or start the assembly process by clipping the corners. And then I'm going to take my sanding disc and sand my edges. And I'm going to just kind of rough it up in a few spots. I don't know how well, let's see, there are some scratch marks on it as well from where I went over top that may not be showing up completely on screen when it's full out. So now it's got a bit of a rough texture to it. Let's do our edges, some scorched timber. Got a dog who now wants to go out, but he can wait 2 minutes while I finish this up. And I think I'm gonna do some ice spruce along the edges. To see, now that we've roughed the edges up, you can either ink them or leave them white. That's completely up to you. I'm just gonna do a little bit of the ice spruce, not too heavy, but just so that they're not, the edges aren't stark white. And let's just glue everything down. All right, so that one's done. So let's take a look at what we've got done. And I'll decide on toppers when I go to put the tag in the final journal. I'm not stuck with, you know, having done something that doesn't necessarily work. I might put a tab on it, you know, all that good stuff. I'm also gonna back these, everybody, off camera. Pretty much, probably not this one, because this one's got writing space just fine. But here's what we've got. We've got pattern paper, scrapbook paper, whatever you want to call it, that we sanded. We've got our 3 embossed panels that's using Sandable Paper that we sanded and decorated. And then we've got the Tim Holtz Craft Core cardstock that has a coating on top that you can sand off and that we stamped on in the space we sanded off and turned into a tag. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.